Hello there, my name is Max and I'm part of Dango Duo, returning to our covering of the 2016 fall anime lineup. I'm here, once again, ready, excited to give you my thoughts on the second episode of Izetta, The Last Witch. If you are all new to the way that we do things, let me tell you how this is gonna go. First and foremost, if you haven't seen episode 1 of my reaction, go check it out on our channel. There may be a card at this moment, maybe on the sidebar, and in the description down below should be a link to the playlist of our fall anime 2016 coverage. You should go watch that. You should go watch the first episode. I'm not gonna talk much about it, but I will probably touch on elements that will spoil your experience. Now, this being the second episode of our reaction series is gonna be a lot lighter. I'm not gonna give you a full-on explanation of everything. I'm gonna tell you a brief, really brief explanation of what happened in this episode. Brief enough that those who want to watch episode 2 can just go and do it and enjoy it. I'm gonna tell you what I enjoyed, very briefly with no spoilers, what I didn't enjoy. Then I'm going to tell you, very frank and honestly, if I'm gonna keep on continuing to watch this anime. And then you may notice, like, those first steps are really brief, yes, because then we're gonna enter the spoiler zone, where I'm gonna spoil everything. I was taking notes while watching episode 2 of Izetta, and I have a full page of notes. There is a lot that we're gonna be talking about, so I say let's take it from the top! What happened in episode 2 of Izetta, The Last Witch, or what is the setup? Well, the second episode of Izetta is more focused on our titular character, Izetta, who may or may not be the last witch. As they escape from the Germans at the end of episode 1, we learn more about Izetta throughout this episode, and we also, as a matter of fact, get to see the opening of the anime, finally. For better or for worse. Let's talk about the good stuff. I promise I would be brief. I want the scripture-y stuff to be as quick as possible, so you can go watch the episode if you want to, and then come back for the spoiler zone and enjoy the rest of the conversation. And I'm gonna be honest and frank. You come here to know what I think and to know what I feel about this particular anime, and I have to be entirely honest and admit that I have no positives about this episode of Izetta. Let's jump immediately into the bad stuff, the things I didn't particularly like. There are so many inconsistencies and problems that are presented in this episode that it left me at the end with nothing but questions, and not good questions. You want stories to leave the reader wondering about certain elements, because you're giving the writer the benefit of the doubt. You assume the writer knows what they're doing, and you go, oh, you didn't mention this, I bet you're gonna bring it up later. It'll be a plot point even. And that's how you feel things should go. But at the end of this episode of Izetta, there are so many inconsistencies, so many moments where the story is really on the nose about what's going to be happening later, that is just very unsatisfactory, and it just leaves me with questions. Usually questions about who allowed this to be made without double checking the things that you're saying in the story. The other thing that I didn't particularly like is that we have pretty much now proof that this story doesn't have gays in it. I'm gonna go in full on detail. Hey, it's probably still up to your opinion. If you go watch the episode and tell me what you think. Do you think there's still gays in this story? That's it for this episode though. It left me wondering, it left me uncertain. As for my thoughts and recommendations, am I gonna keep watching this anime? I'm gonna give it one more episode. I am honestly now, the bar is so low now. My expectations are really, pretty much non-existent actually at this point. And it's come to the point now where I have lost all faith in the writers. I have a full note of inconsistencies. Like, you know what? I'm already talking about the spoiler zone, so you know what? I just told you, I'm gonna watch one more episode. If this description inspires you to go watch the episode, I recommend you go do it. Go do it and experience firsthand, so you can come back and enjoy the spoiler zone with me, because it's about to begin. So again, I want to thank you for tagging along the non-spoilery part of this reaction. At the count of 3, the spoiler zone will begin in full, so you have been warned. Everything will be spoiled at the count of 3, 2, 1. That opening, it breaks my heart. The opening for Izetta breaks my goddamn heart, because the song sounds so cool. Like, I was almost going to put the song of the OP on the good stuff for this episode, but real talk though, I was like reaching for the bottom of the barrel, and I'm like, yeah, the song for the OP is cool. But you know what's not cool? The rest of the OP. oh my god, that OP is a freaking mess. It's a freaking mess, because it's like, it introduces a bunch of characters, and I'm just like, these characters are going to do nothing. There's no way that in 12 episodes, all of these characters are going to prove to be meaningful to the story, especially the maid. And then you have that moment where, like, Izetta is flying in this, like, custom-made battle rifle, and then she actually fires it. She fires this gun, and I'm just like, you have magic powers. Why do you need a gun? And also, why is Izetta naked the whole time? Why do we keep getting shots of our main two characters naked? Why? Why? So, now as we all descend very slowly into the pits of despair, let's talk about the inconsistencies. There's a lot. I'm just gonna tackle them one by one. So, our enemy in this setting is Germania, not Germany, except everybody speaks German and they write in German, and also, they're not Germany by the way, they're Germania, except that their tactics are referred to as Blitzkrieg. You may be wondering, Max, why that's a problem? Well, the reason why that's a problem is because Blitzkrieg could not possibly exist in this world. That's a term that came to be as part of the tactics that the Germans had during World War II. If this is not Germany, and this is not World War II, how the hell do you end up with Blitzkrieg? It's like a term out of a different timeline showing up. It shouldn't be here. And it's one of those things, I know, it's minor, it's kind of minor, I understand, but at the same time it's like, did nobody think twice? Did nobody read the script and go, wait a minute, if this is actually not Germany, why are they calling it Blitzkrieg? But you know what? Let's forget that for a moment. You know, another of the problems with this episode that really bothers me is that it implies that Izetta and Fine, or two main characters, the witch and the princess, have been separated for a while, and they were reunited at the end of episode 1. Except they don't talk about it or mention when they were separated or for how long. In all the flashback, they are children, so you assume that they've been separated since children, except not, and when they're reunited, they're not surprised. So I'm like, it either A, feels that they were never separated, but they were clearly separated because Izetta was trapped inside of a capsule, or the writers just didn't think about it and just moved on with the story because nobody was checking the script. You will be noticing a bit of a theme in that. Let's move on to the next thing. Bullshit magic rules. Hey Izetta, you have the magical power to solve all the problems in the world. Why won't you use them? Oh, because your grandma told you not to? Because they're too powerful for this era, I guess? The whole time I was watching this episode, I was just sitting back on my chair going, someone should have checked this script. Someone should have told the director or the script writer, why can't this happen? Because the whole reason about, the whole thing with writing and revising and making sure that your story actually makes sense is to read it as though you're a reader. To read your own work as though you're a reader. And to that comes asking questions. Why can't Izetta just solve all of the world's problems? And the explanation that they have is that she made a promise to her grandma to not use her powers, but then she breaks it in the first 5 minutes of the episode. So I'm just sitting here like, also, if these witches are literally that powerful, why is there one of them left? I have trouble believing that a coven, is it called a coven? A group of witches with the power of literally just like throwing blood and causing ice explosions all over the place wouldn't be able to just hold on to a small town in Eastern Europe. I don't know. But you know what? Let's ignore the bullshit magic rules, but let's actually look at the fact that these two girls wandering through a forest sneak up on an army. Oh man, that's actually the point in the story where I'm like, nobody double checked any of this, because I'm like, these are little problems that build up that someone should have actually asked. Is like, hey, does this army have scouts? Because if two girls snuck up on them, why wouldn't, a bunch of Germanians have snuck up on them? It doesn't make sense. Armies, even if they are retreating armies, have scouts in all directions to make sure that they're not snuck up on, like it happened. And then when they're snuck up on, the commander pulls out his pistol and just chases after the two girls. What? Oh god. It's literally like nobody thought of like, hey, why did this happen again? Like, because this could have been easily fixed had the girls been noticed or been spotted by the scouting group in the retreating army. That would have have fixed the problem right there. And let's also ignore the fact that this army is fleeing from the Germanians and they're clearly in a hurry. But it's okay, we found the princess, so I guess we'll just set up camp and just stay here for overnight. Because clearly that wouldn't be enough time for the Germans to catch up with us. You know what? Let's ignore that too. It's all fine. Let's actually go back to the flashback that we got while Finet was in the mobile hospital. I don't know, in her tent. We get a flashback in which it's Finet and Izetta meeting for the first time. And I love, and this is love sarcastically, that Finet opens her mouth and in 2 seconds tells us everything about her character. There has to be a much more graceful way than just having this 5-year-old girl talk about witches and how she loves witches and how witches are everything that she enjoys, and she always thought they were a fairy tale, but she always felt in her heart that they were true. It's a little on the nose. You can say that actually about this entire episode, about this entire setting, it's a little on the nose. Thanks, Grandma. A little on the nose. And no, Pilot Man, don't point out the plot holes. That's my job. And of course, the worst part of today's episode, the thing that literally bothers me to no end, is the fact that this show, the marketing material, and also the closing theme of the first episode gave the impression of gays, that there was some sort of relationship between the main two girls, Izetta, the titular character, and Finet, the princess. And they are reunited in this episode, they spend the entire episode together, and all we know for certainty, by the way of their language and the words that they used, is that they are, at most, friends. Tomodachi. Izetta is asked at one point if she is a friend of the princess, and she says that she doesn't even deserve to be her friend because of stuff that happened in the past, I guess. And then later on at the end of the episode, when Finet is basically being like, yeah, Izetta, you have the power to basically stop this war and its tracks, but you know what, you should be out of it because you're the only friend I have, and this is, I'm quoting this word by word, you're the only friend I have who never treated me like a princess. Friends. And this wouldn't hurt, and I could maybe do the leap in logic, thinking that, oh, no, see, it's only for the start. But there's no chemistry between these two girls. There is absolutely nothing but guilt in Izetta, and there is nothing going on in Finet's head. It was hilarious when I started watching this episode, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot what Finet sounds like, because she literally didn't talk at all during the first episode. There is no chemistry between these two girls. I am gonna call it right now. I will probably revisit this anime once it's all completed, but I am pretty darn certain right now that there's no gays in this story. And if there's any possibility, we're not gonna get any of that until probably the last minute of the final episode. Because the girls describe each other as friends. One of them does at the very least. And the other one can't even bother to use the word friends. The people around them use the word friends. And there is zero chemistry between these girls. No displays of affection. And you may say, oh, but Izetta was staying by her side. It's clearly guilt. Everything that drives Izetta is absolute guilt. And also, I just remember actually that during the scene where Finet is being treated by the field medic, you also see her naked, and I'm just really? Do we need to see these are they even 18? You know what? Let's not actually ask that question. There's no chemistry between these girls, and the thing, and what's the cherry on top of this unfortunate Sunday is the very stinger at the end of the episode. Finet tells Izetta that because she's her friend, she can't allow her to tag along, and tells Izetta to leave, that she can't tag along with the army. Because things are bad or whatever, and I guess Izetta doesn't actually have the power to end all of the problems by herself. Except that she has proven that she does. But you know what? Let's ignore all of those things. And Finet says you can't come, basically. To which Izetta gives us the stinger at the end of the episodes by saying, I want to join the army. Which is really dumb, because you can already see the start of the next episode going, no, you can't, Izetta. I just told you that you can't. I told you 2 seconds ago you can't join the army. But then that also within itself is being thrown off, because we know that Izetta has to join the army because we see her flying around on a specially made broomstick that's also a rifle that she shoots. Man, that rifle went from being cool to now just being nonsensical. Because the whole time I was like, that's too big. It has to be like a freaking artillery piece, right? It has to be an artillery piece, but at the same time, I'm like, if you can use your magical powers to force an artillery gun to levitate, why didn't you just fly by yourself? I don't know. I feel the whole page of notes, and I'm honestly not even telling you like half of them. There's a lot of stuff here. What I want to get at is that this episode, or hopefully I made it very clear, this episode is filled with inconsistencies. I can't be like, yeah, the opening song's pretty good because the writers had nothing to do with it. It's a problem, and I'm now basically decided that certain that there's no gays in this show at all. And what bothers me is that the first time you see the closing theme, it only shows the girls. But then when you see it for the second time, you realize, oh, they cut all the stuff that shows other characters. And that kind of like, it went from being like, is this story going to be about these two girls? No, this story is about a bunch of characters, and I don't think they're going to be interconnected. I don't think it's going to be pulled off gracefully. And again, I like to give writers the benefit of the doubt until they prove me otherwise, or they prove to me otherwise. And so far, the writers of Izetta, The Last Witch, have proven to me that nobody ever stopped and questioned the script at all. To me, it feels as though someone came up with a pretty cool idea, or a pretty cool image, a witch flying on a rifle for once. And then they went on to try to connect dots from there on. There are so many things I didn't talk about. There are so many things that I'm just like sitting here almost vibrating in my seat because it's just so nonsensical. I wanted this show to surprise me, and I'm going to give it one more episode. I'm going to give it one more chance to surprise me. Maybe show me there's some kind of hope. Maybe the girls will suddenly develop chemistry. I don't know. I have very little hopes. I'm gonna give it one more episode. By episode 3, if this is a 12-episode series, that's 25% of the way. If a book didn't grab me, I don't know, 50 pages in, I will probably, or if a book showed these many inconsistencies 50 pages in, I would probably drop it as well. So, you know what? Let's see where this story goes. I'm still, I'm willing, I am open to being entirely wrong. Ultimately, I want stories to excite me. I want to be excited for stories, and I was excited about this story, and it's proven to me that its writing is not very effective. But you know what? I've done enough of that. I've talked way too long about Izetta, The Last Witch. I want to know what you think. Please feel free to go into the comments down below and let us know what you think regarding this episode. How do you feel about it? Especially if you're somebody who doesn't write, or somebody from my other channel who does write. What do you think? Did you pick up other inconsistencies that I didn't talk about? Because it's one of those things where I'm sitting here like, did nobody double check any of this? And I'm looking around as though like I'm expecting to see like the faces or like the people who wrote the script going like, just kind of shrugging their shoulders. I don't know. This has gone on for way too long though. I wanna thank you for watching. Thank you for tagging along. Remember, as always, that we make it a point to reply to every comment that you leave. So please go into the comments down below and let us know what you think. Give this video a like, subscribe, tag along. There's more where that came from, and don't forget to check out our Patreon page. But I've gone on way too long. For the time being, thank you for watching. Thank you for tagging along, and I will see you on episode 3 of Izetta, and possibly the last episode of Izetta.